So fascinating.
It's nice. I like it. I really like working with my partners. So
Yeah.
I think it's...
See, I think Antonia, my wife, she would kill me if we worked together. I think I drive her insane enough outside work. Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. Can't even get my words out. For today's episode, we've got an extra special guest in Zara Paul, CEO and co-founder of Choppity. So welcome to the couch, Zara.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up all the way from the glitz and glamour of London. So, first of all, Choppity. I mean, the guys we work with were telling me all about it. They're starting to use it in their production. So could you just give us a quick overview of what Choppity is, where the idea came from, just really like the product evolution of it, because we love a good product here at AT.
Yeah, sure. So Choppity is a website which allows users to edit videos using AI. At the moment, it serves one use case of turning long videos like podcasts or webinars into short clips for social media. We're going to be expanding into other use cases soon as well, which I can talk to you about.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
So where did the idea come from? Did you see like a gap that you could fill? Were you trying to create shorts yourself? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so Aron and I both had experience with editing videos, and it's a really difficult task when you're using traditional tools.
Yeah.
And we happen to know a lot of podcasters in our network. We also, Aron happened to join the Durham Venture School, which was an accelerator program that was hosted by our university. And we'd failed a couple of things before that and decided that we wanted to start something in video using proper startup principles. So we went and looked for a problem that we found, and that's how it started.
That's fascinating. So you mentioned Aron. So Aron's co-founder.
Yeah, co-founder and husband. Yeah.
Cool. And you both went to, we were talking before, University of Durham. So
yeah.
Durham, where it all got incepted, is that where the idea? Were you in Durham at the time when they started to float the ideas, was it?
Yeah. So Aron and I met first term of uni. I was studying maths, he was studying computer science, and I think our first conversation ever was like about Bitcoin and and startups, and we had like an argument about blockchain and its use cases or whatever. And we got together quickly and basically started building tech products. And I ended up dropping out of maths to do computer science. And then I dropped out of computer science entirely to do Choppity.
Wow. That's insane. So just going back to Durham then. So you said that, so you started in maths. So is that what so did you always know you wanted to get into sort of the tech world, or was it more you found yourself in maths and then started to discover the tech world? How did that work?
Yeah, I did always want to get into the tech world, but actually originally the idea of what my career trajectory would look like would be more from the investment side. So I actually wanted to study maths and go into investment.
Wow.
Rather than starting companies. But also, until I met Aron, I didn't really have I didn't realize that it would be possible then and there to start doing things.
Yeah.
And so when we actually started building things together, it felt like, that this is something that we can do now. And it's really in line with what it is I want for myself.
Yeah.
And what we both want.
Yeah, I didn't realise, I know we were talking before, like, you'd sort of, you'd already had a purpose, like you thought you were on one particular trajectory and all things had changed, but you actually had a trajectory that I find fascinating. So when you look at like the role in startup or what the startup environment is, was it something when you look back, like further back in time, was it something that now you look at it, you realise you always wanted to get into that? Or was it something that, like you said, it was something else changed when you were in university that meant that they suddenly realised that is the thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so in terms of the lifestyle and the work structure that I have now, that's something that I've always wanted. And I wasn't really concerned about, I guess, what that looked like, as long as I had the freedom to make decisions for myself and problem solve and the autonomy to determine what it is I'm going to do on my day to day. I guess originally looking at, working for VCs or in other investment capacity, that was something that I felt like was in line with that.
Yeah.
It also felt like there was a very formulaic path to get there. Like, I get a degree, I apply for a job, and then I work through a ladder in order to accomplish that. Whereas they don't really teach you the formula for starting companies, even though there's now a lot of really good startup theory about, the proper principles and best practices and things that you should be doing. It's not something that you come across organically unless you're looking for it.
Fascinating. Because it's the bit trying to get into it, like the fact that there isn't really a formula, but there's theory around it. So when did so when you made that choice of saying, do you know what, actually, I'm going to move from maths, I'm going to go to computer science, I'm actually going to stop computer science, and I'm going to go full-time into this. Was that like a quick decision, an easy decision? Like, was it something you're mulling over for a while, or did you just go, I'm just going for it?
It was a decision that I think I'd subconsciously made. What actually ended up happening was, so we started Choppity, and it was demanding a lot of attention. And
you already started.
Yeah,
right? Wow.
yeah. So we'd already started Choppity kind of partway through my second year.
Yeah.
And I was already working on it full time and then keeping on top of my coursework next to it. But then it kind of got to my exams, and I think I forgot to take the first one just because work had been so demanding.
Yeah, wow.
and it had been also so interesting.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I think academia and school was always the thing that was most interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, I always really loved maths, and so studying was never an issue. And then Choppity kind of became that.
Yeah.
And it meant that my interest for academia and everything else just kind of got pushed aside, I guess. Yeah.
And was there anything whilst you were doing your courses that you were taking into Choppity and the way you were approaching it, or was it those were two completely separate like streams in your head?
Honestly,
you had academia, Choppity.
It was pretty separate.
Yeah.
I think that's also one of the reasons that it was so easy to give up.
Yeah,
it was
because you weren't getting anything from it.
Yeah, I felt like what I was learning doing Choppity, it's funny because in my head I still sometimes feel like I've got the option. I mean, I know that at some point I want to go into investment again, or I guess start up that thought process again, just because I really enjoy the early stage startup like life cycle. I really like starting things, taking things from 0 to 1, and I think I'm quite good at that now. And I'm not going to learn that doing a computer science degree.
So how many times, you said you've done 0 to 1 a few times, so did you have a couple of failed starts, did you?
Yeah. So the first one was the big one. That was basically, we spent almost 2 years building a graphic design app, which was like a Canva clone. And the product was really good. The tech was really, really good and really robust.
Oh, was that you and is it Aron or is it Aron?
Aron.
Because it's funny, because I've got on my head offhand, because we got a colleague who is Aron, spelt the same, but I call him Aron every time. So this time I wrote on my hand Aron with loads of A's to get it right, and I've actually got it wrong. So, and was that with Aron, that 2-year project as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. And that was when we really learned how well we worked together. Before that, or was it before that? Yeah, before that we kind of started building games and things.
Yeah. What was that? Well, just like sat in your bedroom in Durham Uni, in whatever college or whatever you're in. That's where you were doing all this with.
So it was actually during COVID. So Aron and I weren't originally in the same households for COVID. So it was over like Google Meets.
Yeah.
And then at some point we moved in together, and then literally just in a bedroom on a laptop. Just
smashing it out.
Yeah.
So that 2 years, so that was the one that you called it the big one. So that was where you got to that 2 years, and then
So we got to the end of the 2 years, we finally released it, we had no way of monetizing it, and no one needed it. We just didn't build something that anyone needed because, I mean, Canva was already obviously solving that use case really well. But that company we actually had joined the Durham City Incubator with, and they were an incubator set up by Durham Council. They were getting funding from some European fund. So we were, I think, in the last or the before last cohort, because it's not something that they have access to anymore. And it was interesting because sometimes when someone teaches you something, even if you're doing it wrong, you find a way to justify that you're doing it in that way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
It does.
So we were really shoehorning our company into the curriculum that was taught at the Durham City Incubator. And at one point we just got to a point where we realized we're just not going to be making any money from it, because it's not something that anyone needs. And then decided to scrap that. And we kind of did a couple of other things which were like more like passion projects, and then joined the Durham Venture School where Choppity was born.
Yeah. So how hard, we've not talked about this before, but how hard was it to let go of the first project?
Really hard.
Yeah.
That one was really hard.
Did it make you nearly even say, I don't want to do one again, or was it a case of...
No, not at all.
Right.
No.
So it was less the pro, more the fact is you've invested time in that thing.
Exactly.
It's
the sunken ship fallacy.
Yeah.
The more time you invest in it, the more it feels like that time is now wasted. Looking back on it, I don't think of it as wasted time anymore. I think we could have probably learned those lessons faster, but I don't think it was wasted time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked a lot about Durham, and it is something that, like, obviously I looked at your registered address when doing a bit of pre-work, and then obviously chatting about London as well. So, but it seems to be there's a lot of, we're like being Manchester based, we've got definitely a lean to the north. I mean, I'm northern born and bred, but it seems the north or Durham and that particular area has been a big influence on what you're doing. So you mentioned like the accelerator program, like council funding, EU funding. So is there a big strong scene in Newcastle, Durham, etc. around like startups, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think we would be where we are today if it wasn't for the Northeast startup scene. They're a really strong and tight-knit community.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of talent there. And yeah, I think I hadn't had that sense of community in the startup world in London. Like, that's just not something that exists in that same way. You do have a startup scene, but it's a lot wider spread and just not as familiar, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think in the Northeast, everyone is just really up for helping and collaborating, and yeah, it's been massively.
So are you still active in that Northeast community?
We go back as often as we can.
Yeah.
At the moment, we are based in London. Our office is based in London. That's mostly because, well, we're now living at my dad's place.
Right.
Just because we don't want to be paying rent.
Don't blame you.
Yeah, and also the opportunity in London is still bigger. So when we want to go and visit clients, it's a lot easier to do that from London than it is from Newcastle. Even things like flying out to other places, it's a lot easier to do from London.
That makes sense.
But we definitely think of the Northeast as our home, and I do see a future where we could go back. It's not looking like it's going to be immediately, but yeah, I love being involved with the events and the things that they've got going on over there.
Was it hard to, if you incepted it and like Choppity was born up in the Northeast, was it hard to move back down to London, or did it just feel like it was the next progression of it's a necessity, because I say that word, a necessity to go into London because of those like logistics and clients?
So Aron is from Gateshead.
Yeah.
And his family still live there, and so we regularly go up to see them. So it doesn't really feel like
you've left.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like we've left. It's still, I mean, it's still really special to us, and I don't think we will actually re-register or anything. I think we're quite set on staying there. Yeah.
And are you seeing other entrepreneurs and startups coming that you, in the previous communities you were really active in, starting to migrate to London as well for similar reasons? Or
so there's been quite a lot of conversations about, I mean, a lot of companies move for funding.
Yeah.
just because the funding opportunities aren't as big in the Northeast as they are in London. We're bootstrapped and we've got no intention to raise. If we had, though, I don't think we would have moved to London for funding. I definitely would have had the attitude of, you know, raising in London and bringing that cash back to Newcastle or to Durham. And I think a lot of the time, the conversations that they have over there, it feels like a lot of the companies that start there that have opportunities take the opportunities elsewhere.
Right.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? I mean, like, again, fascinating, because I've never worked in a startup.
Mm-hmm.
My brain is completely wired differently to you. Like when you say, yeah, maths degree, you want to get investment, I'm like, maths degree. Yeah, I did a maths degree, but I did it, yeah, just to get by, because I wanted to be a skateboarder, which was never going to be. So I found it easy, and it was a bit like it's fascinating how you're like, we're already like understanding a path you wanted to go on, and then you moved into the startup world. What is the startup world like generally? Because again, from the outside, it feels like a very, I don't know, maybe it's the films I watch, very masculine environment. So what was it like for you being a founder?
It's been really interesting. It is a very masculine environment. When I first started out, I was actually, it was kind of before I was out about my non-binary identity, but I was mask presenting, so I had a buzz cut, and I was often, and still am often, in meetings full of men, and at events where I'm primarily talking to men. But back then, when I was mask presenting, I didn't feel as much of a difference between who I was and how I was perceived.
Right.
I felt like men spoke to me, maybe not quite like a man, but not like they speak to me now. Now I get... I mean, I can give anecdotes. I think that makes the most sense. So there'll be things like, I'll show up at an event and there'll be a man that I've been talking to about something, and he'll look directly at Aron and kind of only be having a conversation with Aron about tech or about the product, and asking business questions to Aron when that's, not his position in the company. There'll be situations where someone will go in to shake Aron's hand, but then will hug me or kiss me. I'll be referred to as Aron's wife often, which is just, wrong, and also quite, what's the word? I guess it's reductive. Is that the right word? And that's been something that's been really interesting, because even before I was feeling uncomfortable, but it was a different kind of uncomfortable. I was feeling uncomfortable because I wasn't out. And I thought that, coming out made a massive difference. So I came out on LinkedIn in April, I think it was, as non-binary, pansexual, and poly. And that was really significant to me, because up until that point, I felt like I was masking when I was at professional events, and taking client meetings and stuff. I just felt like I wasn't really free to be myself. And coming out just meant that I could marry my personal life and my professional life better, which as a founder is really important, because I'm spending most of my day thinking about the company. And so if I'm often thinking about the company in the context of someone who's not fully me, then it just gets really exhausting. I think we were having a conversation about that the other day as well.
No, because it's one where, like, AT, we do talk about like being your true self and bringing your true self to work. And I remember when I first joined, it was something where at my previous organisation, I didn't realise how much I'd had to tailor who I was in front of clients. And totally different situation for yourself, but just even focusing on, say, toning things down or talking in a slightly different way. 5 days away, I'd come back on a Friday and I'd be exhausted. And so, like I've found working here liberating because I actually just am me 99.9% of the time. Like some things that obviously you don't always bring in, but I can totally get the bit where, especially where it's so intense that if you're having to put up a facade or mask or whatever it might be, that must be exhausting.
Yeah. And not just exhausting, it was also massively impacting my motivation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it makes it difficult to want to, work the 60 hours a week that are necessary for you to work. But then, so I came out and started growing my hair out, and then I started having the opposite experience where...
that's the one where we didn't go into that, like, that. It's the fact that then it went so different.
Yeah. Yeah, which was really interesting. And it makes it difficult because on the one hand, I don't want to have to look a certain way in order to be treated like who I am.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's kind of exhausting.
Yeah. Have you found though, has there been benefits of, so since April, like, have you found that being the blurring of personal and professional and being you, has there been upsides of feeling better about things and like feeling motivated?
Definitely. Despite
the cons of people still sort of a new perception of yourself from other startup people?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just more comfortable in myself. Like, I remember after I came out, before I came out, I know that I would get incredibly nervous before calls and just before meeting people in general. And I felt like, Aron was sometimes my crutch a little bit in those kinds of situations. And then after that, I'm more comfortable in myself. And so it makes it easier to be comfortable with other people. And it's annoying to be treated differently, but it's an annoyance rather than than a self-esteem thing.
I get you.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like? I mean, like, obviously Aron isn't here today. In those situations where people are looking at him and talking to him about business questions, like after events, do you like debrief on it and go, that was weird?
Yeah.
And is he like, that was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, sometimes he notices it. Sometimes he notices it, and then sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, usually if I point it out, then he'll notice it, and a couple of times he's actually ended up pointing things out to me that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
So for example, if someone has hugged me and I didn't see them shake his hand before, then he'll kind of make those comments now. It's difficult also because at this stage I feel like I can't be too selective about the people that I work with and the people that I end up interacting with.
Yeah.
So what I end up trying to do is just have those conversations, or I make comments sometimes about, does Aron not get a hug?
Yeah. The little calling it out, but then with a little bit of humour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had one last year, and it was when you said it. And I think we went to a sports day. And this is like a ridiculous example, but there was me and another guy, and then our boss, who's Carolina, and then the guy running the sports day, it was like a load of teams, just came to me and Ben and said, okay, you guys, you're running it, which of you two's the boss? And we're like, no, it's Carolina's team. And I could see him looking at Ben because he's tall, so he looked at me and I can understand, a bit northern, gruff voice. Looked at Ben. Ben's quite tall from London. Looked at Ben and then Carolina, and he's like, I could see him like through his head. He's like, really? And it's a bit like, whoa, mate, what planet?
Yeah.
What planet do you live on? Mm-hmm. But it was like, the bit where just making the assumption straight away.
Yeah.
So it is.
That actually reminds me, I've been referred to as Ann Team before, like on LinkedIn posts that people make about Choppity or something. Like I've often
They're
been
not seeing you like founder CEO.
Yeah, right.
Insane. So what's moving away back from your personal life a sec? Mm-hmm. So what is on the horizon for you, Aron, Choppity? Yeah. Is there any like new? You talked about like looking at different fits in market. So is the product on a particular evolution, or are there any big challenges you're looking at facing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we're doing. The long-term vision is that we want to do to video editing what Canva and Figma did to graphic design. So we want to make it as accessible as possible. And so at the moment we're focused on this one use case of turning long videos to short videos, but we're starting to develop things like multicam video editing and just like mid-form editing and, you know, more kind of like special effects and things. We want to focus on use cases.
Yeah.
So build out individual use cases first so that we can have all of the underlying AI that's required, but then the editor more or less remains the same for everyone. And we're also working on productizing our API. So there's quite a lot of companies who have video products that will be things like, but not Zoom or other kind of video conferencing software.
Yeah.
And many of those require editing within their tools, within their products. So that's one of the reasons that we're productizing our API in iframe. But also there are loads of companies who are trying to build out internal workflows to automate certain tasks.
Yeah.
So there are agencies, for example, who they'll get in a lot of footage from clients, and currently manually someone will sit there and have to comb through everything, and it's just incredibly time consuming.
Yeah.
And so having the option for them to integrate with their workflows and just build out their own paths and user flows or video editing flows, just means that there's a lot more flexibility and opportunity for automation.
And is that you and Aron?
Yes.
Or have you got now like a team, or is it you two doing all this work?
It's us two doing all this work.
Wow.
And we are in the process of hiring, but not a technical person yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So is he absolutely cramming it at the moment, like
yes.
smashing 200 hours a week or whatever on Red Bull?
No, not quite. We're getting a lot better at being disciplined at going to bed at reasonable times, which when we have big deadlines, that's the thing, which is that oftentimes we'll have like a big deadline, like a trade show or a client deadline that's been moved up, where we'll need to cram, and do like all-nighters. And so the rest of the time we don't want to be doing that. We want to be healthy.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is fascinating. I mean, I know like when we started doing a couple of the shorts, it was like the video guys like, oh, we're using this software, it's brilliant. So then when they said, we can actually have a chat with them, it's like, oh, brilliant. So it is fascinating, and it's one of those ones where now when you start to look at it, the tool and where you're going with it, it sounds super, super exciting. So what kind of roles are you recruiting for? Not that I'm looking for a job, by the way.
We're looking for a social media and community person
Right.
at the moment. That's going to be our first hire. And that's actually mostly because, so Aron and I are really good tech and product people, which is why we have such a great product.
Yeah.
We're not so great at keeping engagement of our existing customers and of potential customers. We're just not great at like social media in general.
Yeah.
Like we'll post like a couple things and then, interact with some people, and then I just find people online, or at least the interaction, I find it draining.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the other stuff that I want to be doing.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Oh, that sounds that's cool. So you're going to go into then, so are you looking forward to like, what do you call it? You'll have staff managing. Is that something like that you're like, yeah, it's going to be great, or is that, oh, it's going to be hard?
So there's a lot of admin involved with hiring people, which, that's the bit that I'm not looking forward to, because I already feel like I'm doing a lot of admin. But otherwise, I think it will be great. I think I'm really excited to have more people. I think it'll be great for accountability of just hours working.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you have to come in at 7 every day because you have an employee there, then you shouldn't really be going to bed at like 3. So it'll be nice to be more rigid about our working hours.
Yeah.
And also it's nice to, I don't know, it feels like a milestone.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
totally,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, like, if that becomes your first, when your first employee, have you got a vision of how big you want to go as an organisation, or have you got any limits? Because I think we talked previously, like, you'd worked in really small companies and really like that community feel of N number of people. So is there like an upper limit that you'd like to grow to, or is that just like, I haven't really considered that yet?
So we haven't got a strict upper limit, but we know we want to keep as small as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like, I mean, what's really great about being a 2-person startup is that we can make decisions really quickly.
Yeah.
And we can change our minds really quickly. As soon as you've got, you know, lots of developers and lots of people working underneath you, then it doesn't matter how quickly you make the decisions. It needs the time to, you know, be delivered to everyone that's actually executing. And it means that changes are just a lot slower, and I like agility.
Yeah.
And so I think, we will be staying as small as possible for as long as possible.
And how does the decision making work between the pair of you? Is it a case of, like, Aron makes the technical decisions, you make more of the product direction, or is it very collaborative between the two?
It's very collaborative at the moment. We make most high-level decisions together.
Yeah.
So we, a lot of like the product decision and direction, we'll be spending, you know, hours in front of a whiteboard mapping things out.
Yeah.
And then Aron will go and execute. So there'll be a lot of like smaller decisions that he'll need to make about, you know, the best way to implement a certain thing. And sometimes I'll come in with that, like whenever he needs help with some complex maths, I'm usually the one doing that. And then vice versa as well. So with other kind of business decisions, the high level will make those decisions together, but then when it comes to actually, you know, writing emails and you know, having meetings one-on-one with people, then that's stuff that I'll take. Mm-hmm.
And how do you find it? I mean, we there's another phrase we use, like we agree, there's one we agree to disagree and then commit. So like, actually we can disagree, but as long as we've made our voices known and then we make the decision, even if we're on different planes. But also there's the decision's a decision until it's not a decision. So interested, has there been any ones where you've been on a different plane and actually had to agree to disagree and go, well, actually, I know I can appreciate your point of perspective, but actually on this one, we're going to go this direction? Or has everything been like a unilateral, yes, we're both on the same page?
No, there's definitely been times where, you know, one of us has suggested something and the other one really doesn't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, if it's a business decision, we'll try my way first, and then if it doesn't work, or if
is that where do you play the CEO card?
Not quite. It's more like if it's a product decision, then we'll try Aron's way first.
Yeah.
It's just those are our verticals.
Yeah, your expertise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. No, I think we'll have to do once you get the new product flows going and stuff and the APIs, because I think that sounds super interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to get Aron on for that though.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. No, I also looked at his picture on LinkedIn a few times. I think there's one where you're both dancing. I'm like, I wish I really liked.
I think we were celebrating our first 1,000 MRR or something. Yeah.
You just, when you look at the bottom, I was like, that was before we spoke last week. I was fascinated, going, and then has he got blonde hair now? Or
he's still blonde. Yeah.
Because that was the bit I didn't know what the timeline is like. Is that recent or is that recent? Which
he's been blonde for a little while now, actually.
Because a few pictures on your site where he isn't blonde, so like, I don't know. So maybe only a couple.
You know when someone has a certain hairstyle and then you just think they've had it for ages? Yeah, I kind of feel like he's had it for ages.
Yeah, well, I've seen him on some other, because then you start stalking people around the internet a little bit, which he's probably saying, who's this person keeps looking at my profile? So, yeah. But no, it'd be great if we could, get both of you
definitely.
on. We could get one of our video crew on as a live user feedback on how it's working.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But no.
Don't ambush us, though, please.
No, that would be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? I'm looking at they always say, don't look at us. I'm like, looking at it. They're like, argh. But no, honestly, that was super fascinating, and fascinating into your personal life as well. So hopefully we didn't pry too much. Literally could chat to you for hours, and then they would be like having to use Choppity to get it down to like just 3 shorts. But no, brilliant. If people wanted to chat to you more, whether about startups, whether about Choppity or just your personal journey, what's the best medium for them to connect with you?
On LinkedIn, my username is Zara Anita, one word, or you can email me at zara@choppity.com, and I respond to all emails, and I really like helping people with their startups, so if that's something that people are interested in, then
Awesome.
Do send me questions.
No, that's brilliant. So yeah, thanks again for you coming all the way up. It's actually sunny, which is unbelievable because it's rained all week. So you brought the sunshine with you. So, and listen, thanks to listeners and viewers for tuning in to another one, this time into the world of Choppity. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit the notification button so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's us done. Have a good one. Thanks, Zara.
Thank you, Peter.